Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Daybreak on Trust TV. It is a new week, another beautiful Monday, this beautiful morning. We're live in the Federal Capital Territory and you're watching Trust Television. I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good morning, Nigeria. Indeed, it's a beautiful morning. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Here we try to give you perspectives and analysis on issues that concerns you, and also keep you updated on the things that you should know happening around you. Thank you so much for joining.
All right, Ayuba, it's nice to, be with you again.
Yeah, you too.
After a really, really long time, right?
Yeah, you too. Hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah, I did. I sure did. And the rain's actually still here. Sometimes it acts as if it has actually gone, but then it comes in full force and all that. Like yesterday, it rained all through.
Yes.
And
in fact, almost 72 hours, I would say, of rainfall. It's been back to back. It will rain and then pause a bit.
But we're actually seeing the effect on roads, like, driving through, to the office through Beggar roundabout. It's actually affecting the roads because, you could actually see scarring on the roads.
And then a lot of accidents too in the past few days.
Very
We've
true.
seen that. And then it's more dangerous when it's night and then there's no street lights.
Exactly.
Sometimes you kind of, wonder how commuters are coping with that, because it's quite dangerous driving at night when it's raining and then you are unable to actually see.
And then even during the daytime, it actually causes a lot of traffic. A lot of traffic because it reduces visibility, and then everybody wants to get home at a certain time to avoid the rain and all that. So there's a lot of traffic during this time.
True.
So let's just pray and hope that Abuja or the FCT drivers would be very, very careful when driving under the rain.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the news highlights at this hour. Nigeria records 21 monkeypox cases in 7 days.
Amid hush puppy's trial, FBI launches manhunt for 29-year-old Nigerian over $30 million fraud.
50 million naira ransom. Bandits hold newborn in captivity, flog mother.
So let's take a look at the details now. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has reported 21 more cases of monkeypox in the country within the past 7 days. The NCDC, via its official website, announced on Sunday that the disease could be spread by close contact and exposure to an infected person's respiratory droplets, skin lesions, or bodily fluid. The agency also reported that Nigeria recorded 6 monkeypox-related deaths between January and August, and that 6 states in the country had recorded 1 death each from the disease. It listed the 6 states where monkeypox deaths occurred as Delta, Lagos, Ondo, Akwa Ibom, Taraba, and Kogi. According to the NCDC, monkeypox symptoms include swollen limb, knots, and fever, and a rash that may initially be mistaken for chickenpox or a sexually transmitted disease if in the genital or anal region.
Away from that story, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has declared a 29-year-old Nigerian, Chidozie Collins Obasi, wanted for defrauding New York State more than $30 million by posing as a ventilator seller during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Pennsylvania, U.S. Attorney Jacqueline Romero, in a statement, said the suspect was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud, 6 counts of mail fraud, and 16 counts of wire fraud. The FBI said apart from posing as a ventilator seller, the suspect targeted Americans through a spam email campaign offering illegitimate work from home jobs, adding that Obasi perpetrated the fraud from Nigeria with the help of co-conspirators in Canada and elsewhere. Later, in approximately June 2020, the indictment alleges that Obasi and his co-conspirators took advantage of the Eid loan program by using stolen identities of U.S. citizens to apply for and obtain more than $135,000 in Eid loan proceeds.
A heavily pregnant woman who was abducted from Mando in Kaduna in July has been delivered of a child in captivity. The victim, who went to visit her ailing mother on the day bandits struck, was abducted alongside two of her sisters. Commenting on the situation, the victim's husband, Muhammad Alabi, said that the wife gave birth at the kidnappers' camp on the 2nd of August 2022, and since then, both mother and child have not received any medical care. According to him, instead, the victims were being maltreated and flogged. He appealed to the federal and Kaduna state governments, charity organizations, philanthropists, and well-spirited individuals to assist the family in securing the release of their loved ones.
And on the international scene, Queen Elizabeth II's flag-draped coffin has arrived at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh, following a 6-hour journey from Balmoral Castle, where the United Kingdom's longest-reigning monarch passed away on Thursday. Thousands of people lined up along the route to Scotland to pay their last respects to the late monarch, the only one most Britons have ever known. The coffin will be taken from Holyrood House to nearby St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh on Monday, where it will remain before being flown to London for a state funeral. It will then be moved from Buckingham Palace on Wednesday to the House of Parliament to lie in state until the funeral at Westminster Abbey on September 19. Sunday's solemn drive through Scotland comes a day after the Queen's eldest son was formally proclaimed the new monarch, King Charles III, at a pomp-filled accession ceremony steeped in ancient traditional and political symbolism. And with that, we wrap up highlights at this hour.
Let's take a look at the packages we have for you this morning. Some parents in Adamawa State are considering changing of schools for their kids due to rising school fees. They are therefore appealing to the school administrators, especially private schools, to reduce school fees as new sessions begin. They made the appeal in an interview with Trust TV's correspondent, Salis Lawan. Take a look.
Adamawa State Government, through the Ministry of Education, has set Monday, September 19 as the commencement of academic activities for the first time of the 2022-2023 session. The date, which is expected to be a thing of joy as the new academic calendar begins, however, did not have that effect, as many parents are faced with challenge of handling the daily needs of their children while in school, as well as the increase in school fees due to the present economic realities. They said it will not be a bad idea if school administrators consider the present economic challenges and allow parents to pay school fees in installments.
Even to provide necessary things to the children, we are finding it difficult, talk less of school fees. So we are going to find it hard, but it is a necessity for us. We have to look other means to source for the income to pay the school fees.
You talk about school fees resistance. It is a very difficult situation as long as we, the parents, are in charge of our duties of our children. I think things are very difficult. The economy was too bad. Citizens are frustrated in the country.
Adamu Jingi, a school proprietor, says the idea was not about one, but schools must times run at a loss. Explained that in many occasions, students change schools to avoid paying the fees on their former schools.
Yara in ka dogara akan duk wanda bai biya baka kori ɗansa a makaranta. A yanzu haka wani makaranta wasu kira su yara bakwai, wani wuri su 15.
Yes, of course, high fees are the reason. You find some parents changing schools for their children almost every year. But I can assure you it wasn't intentional. The situation is beyond our control. Sometimes that room granted parents to pay school fees of their children instrumentally is violated, leading to schools running at a loss. So we're left with no option rather than blocking it. Teachers who are at the receiving end said they are not finding it easy to catch up with their family needs.
Equally experience such hardship from parents, from school management, from the staff, and everybody. Counting from payment of school fees. We have started the new session, a new term. The students need new uniform, new writing and reading materials. Everything is above our shoulder. We parents and everybody.
You can see a situation whereby students are paying school fees. At times they pay halfway. Sometimes you can find out that they will not pay at all. You have to allow them. Some of them, when there will be time that will come, they tell you they will go, they will change school or they will go somewhere, or you just stop seeing them, just because of the situation. So we are not in a good situation as far as economy of the school and ourselves is concerned.
Stakeholders says a reduction of school fees will go a long way to ease the burden on parents, especially those who have more than 2 children enrolled in the schools. Salis Lawan, Trust TV News, Yola.
Former Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, is now the president of the Fulani Pan-African Organization, Tabit al-Pulako International. The former Emir took over the reins from Amadou Diallo during an extraordinary General Assembly meeting in Abuja. He's expected to address problems facing the Fulani societies ranging from insecurity, agriculture, and education. Gaza Yakubu was there and now reports.
Pulako International is an association composed of national chapters in 24 African countries, aiming to develop and preserve the Fulbe culture. The extraordinary General Assembly meeting is echoing the unique culture of the Fulani people as the organization elect a new leader.
The Fulanis is a peaceful people, and we want all leaders around the world to support the peace. And we want Fulanis to be protected around the globe because they are peaceful people, they are business people, they are very, very contributor around the world today. If you see the Fulanis anywhere around the world today, they are business people, they are professors, they are very good contributor around the world.
The new elected leader has his hand full as he is now saddled with the responsibility of tackling the challenges faced by Fulani society in West Africa.
I cannot say more because he's the new president to have to define, but the vision is to live together with all other tribes around the world, you know, to reduce the conflict between other tribes and to ameliorate our life around the world. And you know, as Fulani, we have many problems with agriculture people, and we have to manage everything. We have to make sure our young people get a good education for our future, for tomorrow.
The man, if we try to talk about him, I believe we can spend the whole day here today because we heard about him. Even if you check his background, he won the best banking in the world, the whole world. So the Fulani is blessed to have him as a leader today.
With his wealth of experience, it is expected that he will be able to safely guide effort to circumnavigate the many issues that concern the Fulani. Gaza Yakubu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have arrested a Brazilian returnee, Okoli Paulinus, at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, for importing 92 wraps of cocaine, which he ingested and eventually excreted after days under observation in the agency's facility. The 53-year-old trafficker, who was arrested on Friday, 2nd of September, upon his arrival on Qatar airline flight en route Brazil, Doha, Abuja, claimed to have left Nigeria to Mozambique in 2004 and finally relocated to Brazil in 2017, where he obtained a residence permit before deciding to import the illicit substance for a $4,000 fee. This report gives details of some of the agency's activities in the last week.
Also arrested is a 42-year-old man, Aliyu Bello, who was captured at the Malang Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano, for attempting to export a consignment of new psychoactive substance, Akuskura, to Saudi Arabia. The indigene of Kwari local government area of Sokoto, who lives in Gorondutse area of Kano, was arrested on Monday, 5th September, during the outward clearance of passengers on Ethiopian airline flight in Riyadh. At the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos, no fewer than 1,099,000 tablets of tramadol, 225 milligram, have been seized through the interagency collaboration between NDLEA and Nigerian Customs. The pharmaceutical opioid, packed in 50 cartons, were imported from Patiskum via Addis Ababa on Ethiopian Airlines. The consignment was concealed among other non-controlled pharmaceuticals. Also, a freight agent, Aliyu Abubakar, was on Friday 9 September arrested at Narco Export shed of the airport over attempt to export a consignment of cannabis concealed inside bottles of Caro White body lotion. Meanwhile, attempts by drug cartels to export 7.805 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine to United States and Australia have been thwarted by NDLEA operative attached to some courier companies in Lagos. The meth consignment were concealed in the linings of local fabrics, wooden statues, printer cartridges, handle of travel bag and cassava flakes. From other parts of the country, a 25-year-old pregnant woman, Haruna Favor, was arrested in Auchi, Edo State on Friday 9 September with 82 pinches of detamine as well as various quantities of loud, Arizona, Colorado, variants of cannabis, and codeine based on cough syrup. In Gombe, 190,000 tablets of capsules of tramadol, D5 and Exol were recovered from two drug dealers, Nasiru Abubakar, 22, and Umaru Bayero, aka Adiza, when NDLEA operatives raided their stores at the Gombe main market on Tuesday 6 September. In Kogi, a suspect, Paul Ali, 47, was arrested along Okene-Abuja Highway with 1,404 bottles of codeine based on syrup weighing 190.94 kilograms and 2,040 ampoules of pitozicin injection coming from Onitsha to Sokoto. A follow-up operation in Sokoto also led to arrest of the receiver of the consignment on Tuesday 6 September. A raid at the cannabis plantation camp in Emuru Forest, Owo, local government area of Ondo State, has led to the arrest of Monday Onoja, 20, Daniel Kainde, 25, Obinya Okechukwu, 35, where 16 bags of illicit substance weighing 179.5 kilograms were seized from them. Chairman, Chief Executive of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa, retired, in a statement by the agency's Director, Media and Advocacy, Femi Babafemi, the arrest and seizures commanded the officers and men of the command in Kano, Kogi, Edo, and Gombe State Command for their resilience. He charged them and their compatriots in other commands to remain focused and vigilant in their areas of responsibility.
Okay, if you're just joining us, you're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children, protect them, from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. This is Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we will begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story here, it says, life pension for HOS, PAMSEX upsets contributory scheme. And the writer says how new policy negates constitution. Police, professors, push for exclusion. 2. Trend dangerous. Reverse approval. Experts tell Buhari. You also would find Uber's convoy attacked in Anambra. Orderlies gunned down. And that's on page 38. Ransom fraud. Outcome of investigations on Mamu mind-boggling, says the DSS on page 34. E-payment hit monthly all-time high of 33 trillion naira in August, and that's on page 23 as well. The infograph basically shows you the budgetary allocations for pension in 2022. That's federal government's budget amounting to 577.36 billion naira. And that's that for the, well, not forgetting, of course, the tracking of those still in captivity. Daily Trust newspaper, just below the masthead, are counting on the number of days that the school children are in captivity. So you have 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birni Yauri, 452 days still in captivity. 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 425 days still in captivity. Below that, the weekly security review gives you a breakdown of the trend of security situation in Nigeria.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the next newspaper, which is Leadership newspaper. On the top of the page, we have illegal haulage. Dangote patrol team arrests errant drivers. We also have federal government Sarab head to court over ASU strike. Just below the masthead, we have we're losing $700 million monthly to oil theft, says NNPCL. Electronic transmission, parties CSOs caution against sabotage in 2023. We have the lead story here that talks about presidential primary fallout. We are aggrieved but will remain in APC, Amechi Onu Nwajuba say. Only PMB can say if Amechi was fairly treated, says aide, and Nwajuba working with Uzodinma to rebrand party in Imo. More stories. Only good governance will guarantee security in Nigeria, says Catholic bishops. CBN grants Flutterwave switching and processing license. And also Queen Elizabeth, it's Prince Elizabeth II's cottage arrives to huge crowd in Edinburgh. And these are some of the stories on leadership.
All right, let's take a look at the national economy. The lead story there says Nigeria's electricity woes continue as value chain disconnect pervades sector. The writer says stakeholders list fundamental reforms and heavy investments, others as panacea. You also will find at the very bottom how Queen Elizabeth's death will impact UK's economy. Excessive bank charges still causing headaches for customers. Listed oil and gas companies post net profit of 47.34 billion naira. You can also find how you can join the $1 billion tech club on page 30 of the National Economy. That's that for the paper.
All right, let's move on to Blueprint newspaper, where just below the masthead, they says 70 royal garlands for Etu Nupe at 70. We have writers that says monarch urges caution once against calumny ahead of 2023. Atiku others hail ruler on royalty peace. And then we have the lead story that talks about the strike 7 months after federal government ASU students shift battle to court. Ngige 6 accelerated hearing. Uniban staff commit suicide. Order Buhari to release, pay all entitlements. Serap students tell court. Varsity teachers tackle unison. Pro-chancellor vow to stay on. These details of that can be found on page 6. You also have just below that story a pictorial of the Oni of Ife, the Oba of Benin, and the Emir of Kano during a visit to the Oba of Benin in Edo State yesterday. All right, more stories. Flood kills 3, damages 1,453 houses in Bauchi. You also have 2023. Economy torn between hope, gloom, says Rwani. Woman gives birth in captivity. Bandits demand 50 million naira. And writers that says police rescue 3, recover vehicle, motorcycle, weapons in Kaduna. 98 Chibok schoolgirls still in captivity, says Army. PCN sells pharmacies, patent medicine shops in Ibadan. Kogi gives 130 unclaimed corpses mass burial. APC PDP bicker over alleged plan to move Osun Tribunal to Abuja. 19-year-old student commits suicide in Osun, and e-payment transactions hit all-time high August, says NIBS. Yes, these are some of the stories on Blueprint newspaper.
All right, so let's take a look at the next paper. Talking about the Punch newspaper this morning, quite a lot of stories there. You'd see the lead story says FG may lose 7.58 trillion naira to contract disputes damages. It says FEM demands $2.3 billion for alleged Mambila contract breach, files fresh $400 million suit. Most cases against government due to officials' negligence, poor handling, says SANS. Buhari administration has capacity to overturn cases against the government, AGF office says. You would also see above the masthead, FG loses 13.21 million barrels oil worth 603 billion naira in 2022. 500 senior doctors left Nigeria, says medical body. SANs, profs to defend ASU before industrial court. Total manufactured goods fall 36%. Inflation may worsen. You'd also find other stories below the pictorial. Tributes as Queen Elizabeth's coffin arrives Edinburgh. That's that for the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, up next is This Day newspaper from the top of the page. Mourners pay respects as Queen Elizabeth II's funeral procession begins. And we have more stories. Atiku presents policy plans at Editors Forum tomorrow. Akeredolu, most qualified to head Southwest Tinubu Shetima Campaign Committee. Federal government asks court to order lecturers back to work, and writers that says report. Nation's public universities grossly understaffed. Reveals some institutions have just 2 professors, 5 doctoral degree holders. The lead story here says Nigeria's $15.7 billion 2022 fuel subsidy projection to exceed all 36 states' budget. And we have writers that says monthly stolen oil equivalent to budgets of Osun, Kwara, Ekiti. NNPCL loses $700 million monthly to crude oil theft. Wants quick legal framework, stiffer sanctions for criminals. And then just on the footnote there, we have Uba escapes assassins' bullets, security aides, others killed. in deadly attack. These are some of the stories on the front page of this day newspaper.
All right, and on the Nation newspaper this morning, the lead story says 210 days after, federal government asks court to stop ASU strike. The writer says plaintiff seeks order against lecturers to return to work. You would also find Nigeria's debt stocks hit 45.25 trillion naira. And then below the pictorial, we will retire political tourists Atiku to Dubai, says Shetima. A ruling party diversionary, says PDP's campaign spokesman. He also finds 6 feared killed in attack on Uber's convoy. Supreme Court depleted as Justice Aboki retires. Brazilian returnee excretes 92 wraps of cocaine. NCDC 36 monkeypox cases recorded in 1 week. These are the stories on the front page of The Nation this morning.
All right, right about now, we'll move on to take some of these stories that we've reeled out from the papers. And we have our reviewer for today, Ali M. Ali. He's president, Nigerian Guild of Editors, and he joins us to give us detailed analysis of the papers today. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Husseina. Good morning, Ayuba. It's good to be here.
All right, so let's start with the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper that talks about life pensions for HOS, perm sex upset contributory scheme. Let's hear your thoughts on this, and what's the after effect in the long term on contributory schemes in Nigeria?
Well, you can see experts are already kicking that it's like the paper reported that it's upsetting the contributory scheme, and I would expect that others excluded also will be up in arms against that. And if you look at there is the constitutional provision there's no constitutional provisions for it. So I would expect there will be a lot of hues and cries. People will kick. Those who think they've not been fairly treated in this will also be up in arms. But all said and done, why would the government do something as drastic, life pension as this? At a time the nation is, having served 35 years, you will expect this. People should be, pensioners should enjoy their pension. If life pension is okay, it's understandable. But at a time like this, I think, to me, this is ill-advised, it's untimely, and I think the government will have a rethink. And the president, maybe he's been not been guided properly, he's not been briefed properly about the implication of something as, if you like, as radical as this. Because, like the paper reported, it's upsetting the scheme itself. Now, if you look at it, for I think the rank of permanent secretary, when you retire with your full benefits, lifelong. And then you look at the economy, can the economy support that? Especially when people on the lower rung are being asked to tighten their belt. And then the struggle will be that everybody will be looking forward to that, and the people will pull all stops to do that. And then, you see, sometimes it's good when you have a well-rounded civil service, technocrats. It takes a lot of investment to get to the level of a permanent secretary, a federal permanent secretary, even a federal director. You expect that these are people who have gone through the mill, they have honed their skills, they know the civil service procedure, because a sound civil service now would translate to sound governance. If you have a very sound civil service, well-rounded personnel, then you expect that the civil service, which is the engine room to drive whatever government processes, deliverables. So people, they will expect at the end of the day, perhaps they'll be really taken care of. Some people make this reference that the collapse of the civil service system began with the massive purge in 1976, when a lot of civil servants were sent packing unprepared. So you would say, yes, this is a great incentive for people for the civil service now, for civil servants to go through the rank to the point of being permanent secretary, to retire as permanent secretary, and then even the peak, to be head of service. So, but at what cost? Enormous cost. Until this moment, people say we are in this mess because the civil service has been compromised. What I mean compromised from the days of the purge in 1976, when Murtala took over, and then there was this massive purge. Innocent and those who did not prepare. Suddenly, you'll be asked to go home on account of maybe suspicion that you've mismanaged what was in your custody. You've misadvised the government. And then you are left, suddenly you're left homeless. You're not sure of what's going to happen to you. Most of the civil servants asked to go home way back in 1976 do not even have a place they call home because they are living in government quarters. So you say this is a great incentive, but at a time like this, I think the government should have a rethink, the president should have a rethink about this. I don't begrudge them this, but then look at the size of the economy. We are in desperate times. Nigeria is losing money every day. Our major cash cow, that is the oil industry, the crude oil. As of now, we can't even meet the target, and then a lot of theft, diversion, stolen crude, Nigeria stolen crude has made it impossible for the country to meet our approved daily by OPEC.
Okay.
Yeah, we are expected every day to 2.2 million barrels a day, but we can't. We are making slightly above 1 million, and then the rest is being stolen by a consortium of, some will say, insiders, if you like, militants, and then look at the humongous amount of money budgeted for pipelines protection. And then in return, what do Nigerians get? Zero remittance on the part of NNPC to the Federation allocation.
So, but would there ever be a time that we'll consider, okay, this is an appropriate time to do this? I mean, if you look at, aside the permanent secretaries, aside the HOS, we have a lot of pensioners who have been crying about review of their pension, and many of them, considering the inflation that we are dealing with right now, as a matter of fact, are unable to meet their basic needs. And
absolutely.
So, what do we do about this other group of people?
It's a catch-22 situation. It's a vicious cycle kind of thing. At what point do you think, when is the right time to do this? People say, let me just give this allusion to it. They said the best moment to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best moment is now. So what, in other words, yes, now, but we have to also be very cautious of the monetary implications here. What is the financial implications there? And then you have to look at the size of the civil service, the size of those who are retiring, the figure. And then, like you said, it's only in Nigeria that people who are the level of entry, they will earn as much as at the point of exit. In other words, you serve for 35 years because of the increasing devaluation of the nation's currency. You find out at the point of entry, you will be earning as much as what you earn 35 years later, because the nation's currency increasingly becomes valued. For example, those who joined the civil service in 1988, for example, in Leicester, they will be retiring 35 years. But you find out the value of the nation's currency at the point of entry, when you 35 years ago or 30 years ago, when the Naira exchange rate of the Naira dollar was relatively high. In 1990, for example, the exchange was 9 Naira to the dollar. In 1989, it was even a lot less. Then by 1992, it has moved from 9 Naira to 18 Naira, when the parallel market and the official exchange market was merged under Buhari, Babangida administration. So this question is, I mean, I don't know how economists will respond to that, but it's kind of catch-22 situation. When is the best time? Because economists will tell you that all the time they had a caveat, all things being equal, and things will never be equal. But then perhaps that's why perhaps the federal government is taking this drastic step to make this a lifelong kind of thing. But like I said, the Constitution is very clear, unless it will require some kind of constitutional amendment, perhaps going by the story, by the account of that story. But I think this story is exclusive to Daily Trust, and I think this is, again, being Monday. Right. You must give it to Daily Trust for bringing to the fore.
All right, so we have some disturbing stories, really. First, let me begin with the Ifeanyi Ubah's convoy attack yesterday, where we saw, a number of people. I think about 6 or 7 people were said to have died. A video that went viral on social media showed, how graphic the whole situation was. It was a very disturbing one, and we understand that unknown gunmen. Again, as always, we always hear this unknown gunmen. Are we ever going to know this gunmen?
This gunmen, I think they are not totally unknown. I think it's just the way the media or the way it's being reported there. I think they are known. And I think this is about the time now the police should take this thing very seriously, and all the security agencies, because it's an affront on them. Elsewhere, if you kill a cop, like they say, a cop killer, you'll be in deep, deep trouble. Until you are fished out, the whole community may be under siege. But you see, in the southeast, where IPOB elements now, which this mindless, murder of security operatives, I mean, there's some kind of communal support. Otherwise, they wouldn't have disappeared into thin air. This has been going on. Look at, of late, the elements of IPOB, and there's a separatist anyway, whether we admit it to ourselves or not. IPOB elements, just like Ansaru, just like Boko Haram, just like, unlike bandits anyway, they are separatist elements. They are agitating for an independent state. But of late, because of certain political development, they've retreated into the background. Some people attribute that because of, young people and the emergence of certain political forces, and then the idea that, yes, they could get legitimately what they're aspiring to have illegally. Now, with this death, especially the assassination and the murder of these gallant police officers, it brings to the fore again that, look, all is not that well in the southeast. I would expect that as we progress towards the terminal date of, election, there will be more of this. You see a resurgence of, and then
it looks like there's more. The attack appears to be more concentrated on political figures and electoral issues. So, for instance, you see INEC registration centers being attacked. You see political figures, convoys being attacked. I mean, this is not the first, I believe.
Yeah.
We've seen several,
yes.
And the likes of them. Why is it particular about politicians?
Yes, and then if you look at it, even now that you mentioned this, and then you also have to look at it, it's not the whole of Southeast. There is a place where these attacks are more frequent and are more deep-rooted. If you look at a state like Imo has been in the eye of the storm, and you link that to the political developments in Imo State, and the order that was displaced by the courts, the Supreme Court. To this moment, there are people who are up in arms against that. And then the local, because all politics is local. Look at the local dialectics there, political dialectics. Political development, the rancor between the sitting governor and former Governor Rochas Okorocha, and then it has snowballed into so many other things. Some people say, these are mere, they could be mere speculation. But then you see, perception is everything. Like you said, most of the political actors, especially those elected, some of them, people allege they have their own political history, and even some say baggage over time. And the people who are uncomfortable, and then because of their different political platforms, you expect that if you're not in the same political camp or platform, some people would take this desperate.
So would it be right to say then that it looks like this is a situation politicians are taking advantage of?
Yes, and it will come back to bite them in the butt. Those who are taking advantage of this, one way or the other. Because you see, violence is like a genie. Once you uncork it from the bottle, sometimes you can't get it back there. It will consume everything that is within sight.
Okay, now still talking about insecurity, there's this story that's almost on every newspaper today that wants to actually pick your brain on, you know, the whole Mamu saga. You know, on Daily Trust, it says ransom fraud and outcome of investigations on Mamu mind-boggling by the DSS. That some people are actually finding it difficult to believe that for someone who, you know, has helped, you know, in the negotiation and release of so many, you know, victims will be accused of being, you know, part of the whole, you know, crime.
Well, like the story said, it's mind-boggling. I'm still dazed myself. How did Mamu and the DSS come to this conclusion? And then revelations. So far we had only from the DSS. And then at the point of arrest, I think one of the Mamu's aide actually released a statement. I think they head of project in his medium. That they're not, yes.
Yeah, a couple of people have spoken out.
Yes.
Sheikh Gumi have spoken out.
Oh yeah, Sheikh Gumi of late.
Some family members and some sort. And we understand that Fadi Law or something was arrested as well for speaking out and all that and making a case for him.
To some of us, you begin to wonder, the facts really don't really add up. And then, you know, over time you learned, and this is not restricted to the Nigerian DSS, over time people in the know, informed people say, look, you always distrust security organizations. Like one of those who intervene actually mentioned that, look, they are often jealous of people who intrude into their work space. Now, let's look at, if you look at the facts the way they are, then you say, yes, both sides, you take their, you question their involvement in the whole saga. For Mamu, there are certain violations, certain conventions he violated in the process of negotiation on behalf of the families and on behalf of the bandits or terrorists. There are certain conventions, if you are a negotiator, you just don't do. He violated some of them. And which also questioned his neutrality in the whole matter. It was a very dangerous thing he undertook, and when you undertake something as dangerous as that, and then you were careless enough to violate the convention guarding this kind of negotiation, then you know something is bound to give. And this is exactly the situation with Mamu. Now, as for the DSS claiming that perhaps it's involved in ransom racketeering and then the discovery of some, the uniforms and then hard currency. You see, the point is this. All this while, the question is, how come they didn't discover that until he was arrested and in faraway land? Why didn't they storm his residence in the first instance when they suspected if they had incontrovertible proof? Look, it's easy to do that, even to a layman, even to an ordinary reporter like me, that look, you can plant some of these things. There are instances, we've seen that. We've seen, at a point, I covered crime. We covered crime. I covered crime, judiciary. Every now and again, the police will parade suspects with arms, and then some of the recovered arms, long time ago, before banditry now became, took center stage. When ordinary breaking and entry, armed robbery, before kidnapping, now displays and dislodge these petty crimes. You discover that most of the arms brought to display before the reporters, you find that almost all of them, they look identical. And if you took the trouble to mark one now, another round, I'm just saying this because it has happened in the past. So it's a lot easier to plant incriminatory I don't like your face. There's a ways I can plant that. And we had instances of people who had either their residences boggled and incriminating document planted in there, or arms, or their vehicles. One instance is someone who wanted to give, a good Samaritan, actually gave a free ride to a security operative. Halfway he said, look, I've changed my mind. And unknown to him, an arm was planted in his car. Further down, I'm just digressing just to make this point. So, but really there are certain conventions, and then there are questions that only Mamu can answer, because in the process of negotiating, he inadvertently, unknowingly or consciously put a lot of pressure on both sides. That is the the victims, the families, and even the government and the rest of Nigerians.
All right. So, you know, one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is the fact that, you know, the emergence of people like Mamu is as a result of, if you like, maybe certain absence of certain things, maybe on the part of security agencies. So we saw emergence of people like, you know, Mamu.
There was a vacuum, in other words.
There was a vacuum, you know, and then people like him emerged and all that, and which is why now a lot of people are now asking about the intent and all of that. What are the lessons, you know, that should be taken on the part of government to, you know, if, for instance, there's going to be a negotiation of some sort, and then it's also, you know, relating with negotiators, whether, you know, hired negotiators, self-appointed, and the rest of them?
Well, the case of Mamu, for example, is clearly a self-appointed mission. And those who have watched over time, how did that happen? Because, like you said, there was a vacuum. But you see, in every, or less, of course, the government was not prepared to deal with the bandits. And I don't think that was the case. There are people who are well, they have honed their skill, they're trained for this kind of negotiation. And I'm sure, I'm absolutely positive, they are not lacking in the system. It's just that, and that's why the intern now, that people question the intern. Why would he place himself in harm's way and in the process violate all the conventions guiding a process like a top process?
Because it looks like, because it gives an impression as though government do not have options of, you know, hiring professional negotiators to be able to handle.
Or on that's the impression the government will want to give. You see, you distrust government. You distrust government. Let me just go back in history. Remember the case of Sergeant Rogers and the killer squad in the military administration of yesteryears? If a government could have a killer squad to get rid, at least from the account of the likes of Sergeant Rogers, way back before the Oputa panel, if the government had killer squad, that means government could have a team of negotiators at a time of conflict. And this is a conflict situation. It has lasted for a couple of years now, and it's going on. To this, in the front page of Daily Trust, look at the clock, the tracking clock, the number of days, weeks, months. Some of the Yauri girls are in captivity, just like we did with the Chibok girls. So if government had a killer squad, then it will have a team of negotiators to deal with
another
that.
dimension to this is that there are allegations as well on Mamu that he had, you know, seemed to frustrate government's effort in negotiating, you know, the release of the abductees in some instances where he is not involved and the likes.
Well, that may be true. Because look at it, for example, now, and this is why I say he has violated certain conventions. When you are dealing with self-appointed, really, as it were now, he self-appointed himself into negotiating on part. Then you've questioned the intent. Why would you want to undertake something as dangerous as this? What makes it so special? What skills do you have? How vast, how familiar are you with this kind of complex negotiation? So this is where people will now be wary of, they will question his intent. That is one. And then look at how inadvertently, that may be unconscious or conscious. And this is where people who are versed in this, they will say, yes, the man could be guilty. He could be guilty as charged. Why? Because instances where he will say, look, and that may not have been a Freudian slip, that unless this amount is paid, they'll start killing. You don't do that. You don't disclose how much they are charging. This is done in the utmost secrecy to protect the families and the victims.
Okay, now just before we wrap up this segment, let's come back to the economy. You know, we know that, you know, the Nigerian economy is dwindling, and, you know, the news on the economy today, you know, is mostly negative. We have one story that talks about total manufactured goods fall 36% as inflation may worsen. We also have the federal government losing 13.21 million barrels oil worth of 603 billion naira in 2022. And also federal government may lose 7.58 trillion naira to contract disputes and damages, and a firm demanding $2.3 billion, for alleged Mambila contract breach, and, so many negative news on the economy, this day, today. So
Yeah.
just share your
The only
thoughts
thing
on-
missing is that not being any security breach. That would have been the icing on the cake if there was any security breach. So thankfully, apart from the carnage in the southeast, the IPOB attacking I mean, you would say today at least not too much of a security breach is
Just the
reported.
economy.
But the economy, this is very important because you say everything revolves around the economy. Whatever projection, whatever plans is rooted in the economy. And you look at from the account, from the stories you've read out in the papers today making the round, you see Nigeria is literally hemorrhaging. We're losing a lot of resources. We have a revenue challenge, and then we also have expenditure. If you don't have sufficient revenue, you're not likely to meet your aspiration, their goals. But now you are not even having, even if you have the sufficient, you are paying so much for your carelessness. Some of the things that contract dispute damages, it's a result of carelessness. How could you go into contract? And then this is why you say there is complicity on the part of people who negotiate contracts on behalf of Nigeria. There is complicity. They are not different from what we discussed earlier. People who, but unlike the likes of Mamu, who are not properly versed in negotiation, in conflict situations, these are guys who deliberately put Nigeria in this sorry, pathetic situation. Remember the case of P&D contract? Some people came with briefcase, signed a contract that unless you pay certain amount of money, and meanwhile, the government of the day at the time was totally clueless about it. Some people saying that if you fail to deliver P&D, that was something, process and industrial, remember. So now we are losing oil, we are losing crude, we are paying damages, and why? Because some people somewhere are careless, and this is the time, if they are identified, they should be punished.
All right,
they shouldn't be shielded.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your thoughts and your perspectives on some of these stories this morning. We
Thank
appreciate
you very
it.
much for having me.
Our guest reviewer is Ali M. Ali, Deputy President, Nigeria Guild of Editors, joining us to give perspectives to the stories on the front pages of our newspapers. We'll take a short breather now, and then when we return on top of the hour, we'll take a look at the headlines again. Stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Good morning and welcome back to Daybreak on Trust TV. If you're just joining us, this is where you are. And, you know, the discussion did not just start. This is the second and final hour. And, you know, would like to welcome you all the same. And thank you so much for those of you who have been with us from the beginning for staying with us. I'm Dashan Husseina Usman.
I am Ayuba Ilya. Let's take a look at the headlines again. Clampdown on Mamu's allies continues as DSS detains his employee. Nigeria
records 21 monkeypox cases in 7 days.
50 million naira ransom. Bandits hold newborn in captivity. Flock mother.
All right, moving on to the details. The Department of State Services has detained a staffer of Desert Herald, a Kaduna-based publication owned by embattled terrorist negotiator Tukur Mamu. Daily Trust gathered that Mubarak Tinja, the staff member of Desert Herald and a younger brother to Ibrahim Tinja, who was arrested together with the publisher and his son, was detained after he was invited by the security operatives to retrieve phones and other devices confiscated from Tukur Mamu's home in the early hours of Thursday. Family sources said Tinja, who was accompanied to the Kaduna office of the DSS around 5 p.m. by a friend, has been detained. However, renowned Islamic scholar Dr. Ahmed Gumi has called on the Nigerian government and security agencies to either charge the Desert Herald publisher to court or release him, stressing that any unjustified arrest of Nigerians can be considered an act of terrorism. The DSS had in a statement said Mamu, who played a role in the release of several hostages of the March terrorist attack on a train, has questions to answer on insecurity in Nigeria.
Now, a heavily pregnant woman who was abducted from Mando in Kaduna in July has been delivered of a child in captivity. The victim, who went to visit her ailing mother on the day bandits struck, was abducted alongside 2 of her sisters. Commenting on the situation, the victim's husband, Muhammad Alabi, said that the wife gave birth at the kidnappers' camp on 2nd of August 2022, and since then, both mother and child have not received any medical care. According to him, instead, the victims were being maltreated and flogged. He appealed to the federal government and Kaduna state government, charity organizations, philanthropists, and well-spirited individuals to assist the family in securing the release of their loved ones.
Let's move on to health. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has reported 21 more cases of monkeypox in the country within the past 7 days. The NCDC, via its official website, announced on Sunday that the disease could be spread by close contact and exposure to an infected person's respiratory droplets, skin lesions, or bodily fluids. The agency also reported that Nigeria recorded 6 monkeypox-related deaths between January and August, and that 6 states in the country had recorded 1 death each from the disease. It listed the 6 states where monkeypox deaths occurred as Delta, Lagos, Ondo, Akwa Ibom, Taraba, and Kogi. According to the NCDC, monkeypox symptoms include swollen lymph nodes, fever, and a rash that may initially be mistaken for chickenpox or sexually transmitted disease in the genital or anal region.
All right, now let's take a look at some packages this morning. Some parents in Adamawa State are considering changing of schools for their kids due to rising school fees. They are therefore appealing to school administrators, especially private schools, to reduce school fees as new sessions begin. They made the appeal in an interview with Trust TV's correspondent Salis Lawal in Yola. Take a look.
Adamawa State Government, through the Ministry of Education, has said Monday, September 19, as the commencement of academic activities for the first time of the 2022-2023 session. The date, which is expected to be a thing of joy as the new academic calendar begins, however, did not have that effect, as many parents are faced with challenge of handling the daily needs of their children while in school, as well as the increase in school fees due to the present economic realities. They said it will not be a bad idea if school administrators consider the present economic challenges and allow parents to pay school fees in installments.
Even to provide necessary things to the children, we are finding it difficult, talk less of school fees. So we are going to find it hard, but it is a necessity for us. We have to look other means to source for the income to pay the school fees.
You talk about school fees resistance. It is a very difficult situation as long as we, the parents, are in charge of our duties of our children. I think things are very difficult. The economy was too bad. Citizens are frustrated in the country.
Adamu Jingi, a school proprietor, says the idea was not about one but schools, most times run at a loss. Explained that in many occasions, students change schools to avoid paying the fees on their former schools.
Yara in ka dogara akan duk wanda bai biya baka kori ɗansa a makaranta. A yanzu haka wani makaranta wasu kira su yara bakwai, wani wuri su 15.
Yes, of course, high fees are the reason. You find some parents changing schools for their children almost every year. But I can assure you it wasn't intentional. The situation is beyond our control. Sometimes that room granted parents to pay school fees of their children instrumentally is violated, leading to schools running at a loss. So we're left with no option rather than blocking it. Teachers who are at the receiving end said they are not finding it easy to catch up with their family needs.
We equally experience such hardship from parents, from school management, from the staff, and everybody. Counting from payment of school fees. We have started the new session, a new term. The students need new uniform, new writing and reading materials. Everything is above our shoulder. We parents and everybody.
You can see a situation whereby students are paying school fees. At times they pay halfway. Sometimes you can find out that they will not pay at all. You have to allow them. Some of them, when there will be time that will come, they tell you they will go, they will change school or they will go somewhere, or you just stop seeing them, just because of the situation. So we are not in a good situation as far as economy of the school and ourselves is concerned.
Stakeholders says a reduction of school fees will go a long way to ease the burden on parents, especially those who have more than 2 children enrolled in the schools. Salis Lawan, Trust TV News, Yola.
All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now talking about, education in Nigeria and, how it keeps worsening every day. Earlier you were talking about, how private schools, it seems like private schools are beginning to, reap the benefits of opening private schools from parents. And these parents are not finding it easy at all. You go to a school and, just for one session, not a term, just for one session, and talking about primary school, and the amount of school fees that is being paid is just too much. Some go for as much as ₦1 million. I
mean, it's more like, by the day, schools are coming up with ways of what seem like an exploitation, because as far as I'm concerned, it's more like exploiting parents, because each day, one thing comes up. You find that, the school will say, okay, aside the school fees that you are going to be paying, the basic school fees, other things like, you pay for phonetics, or you pay for music class, you pay for this. Certain things that are meant to be optional is now made compulsory and you have to now pay. And then maybe buying of books, from the school. Sometimes some of these books are quite cheaper in the bookshops, but you are made to buy from the school, and all of these things add up together, inflate the
cost of, of educating a child.
Fees and everything. So it becomes more and more difficult. Imagine a person who has, say, 3 or 4 children in the same school and is having to pay school fees for each of the child. Perhaps maybe one is, they are in different classes, so to say, right? And then you are having to pay 150,000 for each child. You're having to pay 400,000 naira, 500,000 naira for one child. At the end of the day, as someone who has 4 children, how much would you be paying? We are talking millions. Just for it,
in most cases, these amounts that are actually being paid don't reflect on the teachers at all, because the teachers are being paid peanuts and, you know, meant to do all of the work. So you hear, you know, these school proprietors saying most of the money goes into expansion of the school, or, you know, giving the children top-notch facilities in the school and everything.
In any case, those facilities are not bought every day, are they?
Exactly.
I mean, you don't buy those,
no, even school buses are not even bought every day, you know.
Exactly, except for maintenance.
And that's actually a different amount on its own. If you're paying for your child to be picked and dropped from school every day.
Exactly. You know, so perhaps there should be some kind of regulation, or there should be, you know, a look into this, because I mean, the fact that parents can no longer send their children to public school doesn't now mean that they should be skinned, you know, for enrolling their children in private schools, because that's what it seemed like.
No, exactly, because most parents are scared of taking their children to public schools. And then in other climes, you have, you know, these children from a certain class getting free uniforms, getting free books, you know, getting free food and everything. But you come to Nigeria here, you have to pay for every single thing, even as little as a pencil.
And this also goes back to the issue of the fact that we need to have public schools that can actually compete with the private schools. I mean, in any case, in other climes, private schools is usually, you know, the last resort, you know, but most people would rather go to the public schools because of the quality of education. I mean, definitely. If as Nigerians, you know, people who are paying tax, you know, you end up sending your child to, you know,
but on the flip side
school,
again,
then what are you paying the tax for?
On the flip side again,
education is supposed to be one of those things that you are paying for.
Yeah. So, but then on the flip side, these private schools are doing a lot in order to educate a child, and you won't even blame the parents if they don't mind paying whatever amount, you know, to get their children to these private schools.
And in any case, it's not like the public schools cannot do the same. It just takes, you know, commitment, you know, on the part of, you know, the authorities to make sure that we have public schools that are good enough, you know, such that people can actually take their children, you know, to the schools. All
right, so let's move on to more reports. Henna, otherwise called Lele in Hausa, has been a long tradition in Nigeria that defies modernity, especially in northern parts of the country. This age-long tradition, instead of disappearing, only experienced a paradigm shift from old method of application to the modern way. Bello Musa reports.
Henna design is an old cultural way women, especially in the north, used to decorate their skin. Some women in Kaduna say application of henna not only makes fashion statement, it is must for big wedding event. Henna is a kind of dye prepared from henna tree, application of which is also called kunshi in Hausa. Women, especially in northern Nigeria, decorate their skin with henna during ceremony like wedding, marriage, or during festivities like Salah, though women love it so much that they apply it for leisure.
Henna is a decoration that women used to do it to beautify their skin during occasion like naming ceremony, wedding, Salah, and any other activities. Some of them are doing it for their husband and some of them for their boyfriends.
However, in the olden days, women apply henna without much design, but as time flies, modern henna comes in different design.
We have different types of henna. Like we have bridal henna, we have casual, we have special casual. Bridal henna is for brides. Casual is for those that wanted to do it on their own. Some they want it black, some they want it red. Some of them they like all black or red.
Some women express why they like being decorated with henna.
Well, actually, I love henna decoration because I love fashion and I'm a fashion designer.
I do henna mostly I do it because it looks beautiful, to beautify myself, to beautify my hands, at my feet. There's a normal one they call lalli. That's the normal one they do. That's what we used to do, our grandmothers used to do then. But now henna, it comes with designs. You see the designs. The first time I had it done on me, I loved it so much. I liked the way it looked. I liked the way, you know, when you go around with people, when people see you, they admire you.
How does a woman feel like when she applies henna?
Well, I feel so excited, feeling on top of the world, seeing the design on my skin.
It's eye-catching. So whenever we do it and you see your hands, they look different, they look beautiful. You know, especially from the northern part of Nigeria, we like doing that. It makes us look beautiful, it makes us look unique, and it makes us represent our culture.
Price of henna varies depending on the design.
It depends on how you want it. Maybe you want it to be large, that will cost a lot of money.
Nowadays, celebrating wedding, naming ceremony or festival like Salah is incomplete without women applying henna on their hands or legs. In those days, women personally apply henna on their skin, but the introduction of modern design, many henna artists like Jamila Mahmood finds it a lucrative business. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
All right, thank you so much for that report, Bello Musa. Now, the 14th Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, is now the president of the Fulani Pan-African Organization, Tibal Pulaku International. He took over the reins from Ahmadu Diallo during an extraordinary General Assembly meeting in Abuja. He is expected to address problems facing the Fulani societies ranging from insecurity, agriculture and education. Our correspondent, Gaza Yakubu, was there.
Pulaku International is an association composed of national chapters in 24 African countries, aiming to develop and preserve the Fulbe culture. The extraordinary General Assembly meeting is echoing the unique culture of the Fulani people as the organization elect a new leader.
The Fulanis is a peaceful people, and we want all leaders around the world to support the peace. And we want Fulanis to be protected around the globe because they are peaceful people, they are business people, they are very, very contributor around the world today. If you see the Fulanis anywhere around the world today, they are business people, they are professors, they are very good contributor around the world.
The new elected leader has his hand full as he is now saddled with the responsibility of tackling the challenges faced by Fulani society in West Africa.
I cannot say more because he's the new president to have to define, but the vision is to live together with all other tribes around the world, you know, to reduce the conflict between other tribes and to ameliorate our life around the world. And you know, as Fulani, we have many problems with agriculture people, and we have to manage everything. We have to make sure our young people get a good education for our future, for tomorrow.
The man, if we try to talk about him, I believe we can spend the whole day here today because we heard about him. Even if you check his background, he won the best banking in the world, the whole world. So the Fulani is blessed to have him as a leader today.
With his wealth of experience, it is expected that he will be able to safely guide effort to circumnavigate the many issues that concern the Fulani. Gaza Yakubu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency have arrested a Brazilian returnee, Okolie Polinius Nwabueze, at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, for importing 92 wraps of cocaine, which he ingested and eventually excreted after days under observation in the agency's facility. The 53-year-old trafficker who was arrested on Friday, 2nd September upon his arrival on Qatar airline flight en route Brazil, Doha, Abuja, claims to have left Nigeria to Mozambique in 2004 and finally relocated to Brazil in 2017, where he obtained a residence permit before deciding to import the illicit substance for a $4,000 fee. This report gives details of some of the agency's activities in the last 1 week.
Also arrested is a 42-year-old man, Aliyu Bello, who was captured at the Malang Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano, for attempting to export a consignment of new psychoactive substance, Akuskura, to Saudi Arabia. The indigene of Kwari local government area of Sokoto, who lives in Gorondutse area of Kano, was arrested on Monday, 5th September, during the outward clearance of passengers on Ethiopian airline flight in Riyadh. At the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos, no fewer than 1,099,000 tablets of tramadol, 225 milligrams, have been seized through the interagency collaboration between NDLEA and Nigerian Customs. The pharmaceutical opioid, packed in 50 cartons, were imported from Patiskum via Addis Ababa on Ethiopian Airlines. The consignment was concealed among other non-controlled pharmaceuticals. Also, a freight agent, Aliyu Abubakar, was on Friday 9 September arrested at narco export shed of the airport over attempt to export a consignment of cannabis concealed inside bottles of Caro White body lotion. Meanwhile, attempts by drug cartels to export 7.805 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine to United States and Australia have been thwarted by NDLEA operatives attached to some courier companies in Lagos. The meth consignment were concealed in the linings of local fabrics, wooden statues, printer cartridges, handle of travel bag and cassava flakes. From other parts of the country, a 25-year-old pregnant woman, Haruna Favor, was arrested in Auchi, Edo State on Friday 9 September with 82 pinches of detamine as well as various quantities of loud, Arizona, Colorado, variants of cannabis, and codeine based on cough syrup. In Gombe, 190,000 tablets of capsules of tramadol, D5 and Exol were recovered from two drug dealers, Nasiru Abubakar, 22, and Umaru Bayero, aka Adiza, when NDLEA operatives raided their stores at the Gombe main market on Tuesday, 6 September. In Kogi, a suspect, Paul Ali, 47, was arrested along Okene-Abuja Highway with 1,404 bottles of codeine based on syrup weighing 190.94 kilograms and 2,040 ampoules of pitozicin injection coming from Onitsha to Sokoto. A follow-up operation in Sokoto also led to arrest of the receiver of the consignment on Tuesday, 6 September. A raid at the cannabis plantation camp in Emuru Forest, Owo, local government area of Ondo State, has led to the arrest of Monday Onoja, 20, Daniel Kainde, 25, Obinya Okechukwu, 35, where 16 bags of illicit substance weighing 179.5 kilograms were seized from them. Chairman, Chief Executive of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa, retired, in a statement by the agency's Director, Media and Advocacy, Femi Babafemi, the arrest and seizures commanded the officers and men of the command in Kano, Kogi, Edo, and Gombe State Command for their resilience. He charged them and their compatriots in other commands to remain focused and vigilant in their areas of responsibility.
All right, there you have it, kind of an update on the activities of the NDLEA in the last 1 week. Now, we'll take a short breather, and then when we return the show, we'll continue. Please stay with us.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV right here in the Federal Capital Territory. Now let's move on to more segments on the show. When an import-dependent country has a weak currency, there are bound to be increasing unemployment and escalating poverty. Now, such is the present case of Nigeria, with increasing appetite for important goods and dwindling price and volume of crude exports. Pressure on Naira remain high, leading to regular devaluation. Now, we're going to be, launching an interview with an economist, Dr. Suleiman Danusa, on Nigeria's economy, where he says low production in the economy is responsible for the steady decline of the nation's currency. Let's take a look.
We used to export. Gone were days when we were almost at the top 3 in the cocoa, palm oil, and all those exportable commodities around the world. And we used to earn so much from those. As a matter of fact, in the early 60s, 70s, the supply of foreign exchange was higher than the demand for foreign exchange in those days. So basically, therefore, supply aspect of generating the foreign exchange, it's what puts the currency of domestic currency strong. And over the years, you have seen what has happened. We have become more import dependent. We have also become a monoproduct economy, where 90% of our foreign exchange earnings are from oil. And you know the vagaries, the instability, the volatility of the oil. Sometimes prices will come as low as 30, 20, and sometimes will go up. And obviously, it's affecting our this thing. If you look at our foreign exchange earnings in the past, you realize that we used to have surpluses over and above the demand. Now, again, what determines the value of a currency is also the demand side. In those days, I give you simple examples of education. How many Nigerians were actually going abroad to school? How many vis-a-vis what we have today? How much were we spending for educational payments and so on? The CBN says almost in the last 10 years, we probably have spent not less than about 28 to 30 billion US dollars on education. In the area of health, in the last 10 years, CBN data also shows that we have spent not less than 11, 12 or more billion US dollars, almost an average of $1 billion every year on health. So the more, and then of course, other travel allowances, etc., expatriates, professional, all those things that we spend on have grown, not only because of population growth, but because of dependence in so many things that are imported. Also, payment for imports, you can see how much billions we have as bills in importation. Now, the more, therefore, the demand, the more you import, the more, obviously, the price of the currency. If you consider Naira as a commodity, the more people seek out the Naira, the more, of course, the price of Naira will go up. And therefore, what needed to have happened is for us to really continue to strengthen our currency is where supply is aggressively pursued. We export more than we import. And of course, we diversify our economy as well as to have many sources of foreign exchange. We also ensure that a lot of the things that we import can be manufactured locally, and therefore retaining our foreign exchange, improving and increasing our foreign exchange reserve, having positive balance of payment, etc. Those will play. And then, of course, on the demand side, we also have to tame demand. For example, when Central Bank of Nigeria introduced the policy of eliminating 41 items from the funding, CBN foreign exchange funding. It's been on record that savings have been done. So our ability, our culture to be able to manufacture or to produce some of these things is very important. If you look at in the 70s also, a lot of the cars that we ride in Nigeria, the Peugeot, the Volkswagen, etc., were at least put together in Nigeria. All right? The CKDs, etc., yes, are imported, but there are value additions, offer employment, etc. And for that reason, if you look at, compare what we expend for exchange on transportation vis-a-vis what we do, almost every car on the road today is imported. And all those things go to put a strain on our capacity and also, of course, our reserves, this thing. And if you look at the fact that the dwindling major source of our foreign exchange, which is from oil, you find the capacity that we have right now, we are not even meeting our OPEC quota. Of course, because of vandalization, because of threats, etc., and the corruption that are all in it. So basically, therefore, all these things have affected our value of the value of naira as at then, and the value of naira as at today. One other strand on why the value of naira, the nostalgic value of naira in the 70s, etc., is becoming a major reference point in history is the fact that the kinds of things that we have today about, we have subsidies, so much subsidies and so much naira in circulation from sources that can be explained economically, just like CBN, umbrella funding, etc., and so on, has made it so easy for the invasion in the area of demand for foreign exchange, either for round-tripping or for flight of people's resources because of so much liquidity out of corruption and money laundering. All those kind of impact. So, yes, in the early 70s, etc., supply was slightly more than the demand. We had a depressed demand, but over time we found that more demand and less of supply. And in the past, at least an attempt was made to diversify effectively the sources of earning foreign exchange. Exports was quite dynamic then, even if it is of primary commodities, etc. But if you look at what is happening today, most people are more relaxed, even though, of course, government is doing everything possible to incentivize export, etc. So it's an issue of demand and supply. And we have to either improve on one aspect, but it's always better to work on both. Increase supply, and then, of course, manage the demand very well. Yeah.
Talking about this issue of demand and supply, what would you made of the CBN interventions over the years?
Yeah.
Which obviously has not really helped the naira.
Yeah. No, you see, if you go back to the early 70s, we had what they call exchange control. As at that time, between 1970-72 to 1986, pre-SAP, what used to happen, of course, we had more supply of foreign exchange vis-a-vis the demand. But so as at that time, central bank was controlling both the rate, the rate of naira-dollar exchange, and based on whatever policy they want to promote. But of course, you know that the coming of SAP, Structural Adjustment Program, in 1986, where the market forces were introduced, you start having that's the introduction of foreign exchange market. The introduction of foreign exchange market, that is FEM, F-E-M, was heralded a situation where foreign exchange started to be sold through auction, either Dutch auction or interbank sales of foreign exchange and so on. Different things were tried. But the essence is when CBN decides to peg the interest rate, and pegging means a fiat rate, and for you to do that, there are conditions. For you to say our rate is going to be 430 or 400 or 300, then you must be able to have the supply that can sustain the demand under that rate. Because if you don't have, then you are going to create another market. Because the more the demand, the more people really want to buy, even in black market outside that. And therefore, you will see the gap. The pressure now will be on you. It will affect the exchange rate that you have pegged, and it will also affect your reserve. Because at any point in time, if you want to keep it at 430, then you have to be resorting to your reserve to make up, and that's what central bank has always done. Now, of course, unless and until you improve on the supply, CBN will continue to have problems because it will diminish the reserve, and whatever policy things that CBN is going to introduce, like increase in interest rate, etc., and so will not have, because there is a relationship between not only money supply in the system, there is a relationship between the value of your exchange, the currency, and the level of inflation. Not only the local inflation, but even the inflation of the country of the standard currency of trade. Therefore, if, for example, over a 10-year period, the average inflation rate of the United States is, let's say, 2%, but the average inflation rate of Nigeria is 15% or 12%. Now, that gap, all right, should determine the difference in exchange rate. If the computation of that gap translates to an exchange rate that is lower than what it should be, given the gap in inflation between the currency of trade and your this thing, that means you are subsidizing the exchange rate. And if you do that, obviously people will go and buy from the black market because you don't have a realistic exchange rate. And because it is getting higher and higher, the supply, official supply is low, people will seek out exchange rate wherever it is. Then it will come back, prices will be higher, inflation will be higher, etc. So that is why at every point in time, you find that CBN has to now intervene. And one other reason is that CBN is always having to intervene from the only single source, which is obviously oil, is because we have not diversified our sources of foreign exchange. We have not really promoted not only diversification, but productivity of our economy. Because the more of goods that we produce here, the less of the need for foreign exchange to import them. To the extent that we import matches and all those things, it is to that extent that people will continue to look for. So the more we are able to satisfy demands from local production, the less we need foreign exchange, and the more we conserve our foreign exchange. So yes, the more we rely on mono-product source of foreign exchange, the more central bank attempts to peg exchange rate, the more obviously we create black market, and the more CBN is required from time to time to intervene, because the consequences of increase in foreign exchange is inflation, prices, and so on. You know what that does to the society, and especially in an environment where there is unemployment, it will cause crisis, it will cause insecurity, and therefore, unless we diversify these sources, unless we become more productive, we will just continue to be a fire extinguisher. Or CBN will continue to be a fire extinguisher as far as the exchange management policy is concerned.
That's a very interesting submission. You made mention of the standard currency of trade. In the 80s, Naira was, before early 80s rather, Naira was in high demand, one of the standard currency of trade at the time. Before, but it changed now. When President Buhari, former head of state, and the head of state then, Muhammad Buhari, introduced what we call maybe, I don't know how to put it now, a change in Naira at the time. problem we have from then till now as one of the reasons?
No. You see, our policy is very dynamic. And governments and countries make policies to satisfy their economic interests and national interests. And therefore, we have no...
What I'm trying to say,
yeah.
If you look at the US dollar, right from when it was introduced, it has remained a US dollar till today.
Yeah.
But in Africa, we've undergone so many transformation changes and all of that, that is making some of these countries to lose faith in our economy and in our currencies.
Well, I don't think the countries will just lose faith just because you have changed your naira from maybe another name to another. The dollar has remained dollar, not because if they change the name, it will matter. What matters is what are the underlying framework for the economy? How productive is the economy? What is the earning capacity of the economy? Because today, America is an industrialized country. It is very advanced even in the provision of service and technology, etc. It offers employment. The economic policies are done to provide them competitive advantage over other economies, etc. And therefore, all those translate into because the currency of a country is a symbol of your might, industrially, economically, etc. It's not just so the fact that we have a fiat exchange tool doesn't mean the name of your country will just determine how competitive you are. So the naira could have been the greatest country, one of those major currencies if we had backed up that naira with a lot of productivity. We've backed up that naira with earning capacity and diversification, because those are the things that really are the fulcrum of this thing. The reason why today we call ourselves the giant of Africa, etc., and so on, is because for so many decades we've enjoyed oil revenue, and then we have our earnings in oil revenue and the GDP, the highest GDP in Africa, etc., is because of our earning capacity from oil. Unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on that earning capacity to build up other sources of earning so that we can really become diversified and solid. And by that, our currency should have been currency of reference, even in Africa. We should be a hub for all African currencies. Because any currencies now should be benchmarking with Naira if we had done what we are supposed to do. But we didn't do it. Changing the name of a currency or changing whatever you want to do with the currency without really changing the fundamentals and working on the fundamental that cannot see. Rwanda, Kenya, all those things are trying to change. Even Nigeria, you can see, if you look at our GDP table, you find that the services, telecommunication, etc., are beginning to change the dynamics in our GDP. Agric used to play dominant role. They are still playing dominant role. But the only problem is that we have not actually flogged the value propositions in the value chain of agriculture, which is our major area of comparative advantage. If we do that, then we begin to now say, yes, we don't only have a great country, we have a great economy, and we have a great currency. Happily, we have the African trade, this thing that is coming. And again, for us to take advantage of that, to earn more foreign exchange, we have to be productive, we have to diversify, we have to differentiate ourselves, and using the resources that we have, the right policies, etc., to make sure that we become the dominant and a hub for African trade. And if we do that, then our currency will become very strong and a reference point vis-a-vis other currencies of trade.
All right, thank you for staying. If you are just joining, I would say, well, you are probably late. We had this interview with Dr. Suleiman Ndanusa. He's an expert on the economy, giving us, an update and explanation as to why the Naira keeps devaluing. And one of the major points that I picked from there, which has been re-echoed by several other economic experts, is the issue of the fact that Nigeria have to mass produce. Nigeria have to embark on production to, to be able to earn more forex. And one of the major forex earners for us in Nigeria is crude oil. And sadly, even though that countries are earning high, we do not seem to be benefiting that much from the boom.
And that's why it's very important, to deviate from the crude a bit and look at other non-export, non-oil export, avenues, and also, yes, do that. But the sad thing is with the inflation, increasing on a daily basis, when you talk about, the economy, the next thing you hear is, it's not just Nigeria that's going through this, everywhere in the world, and they blame it on the Ukraine and the Ukraine war and all that. And it's time for us to start producing. Enough of being a consumption nation. We need to start producing and exporting as well.
Yes, and we need to drop the importation of, things that
so many things that we can actually do ourselves.
Yeah, so that's very, very important.
And also the government also needs to encourage entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I agree totally.
With the way the economy is now, so many small and medium scale enterprises have actually gone down the drain. Where does that leave us?
Exactly. So that's a food for thought, and it's a good place to end the show for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and in case you've missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms, and also don't forget you can watch us live on YouTube. My name is Ayuba Ilya.
And I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Thanks for watching.
Bye.